Chapter 4. Returning home. An early start. Hardly even light and the twins were hunted out the hatch of the Sea Stallion, tasked with helping everyone else sort out the base site. Mia in charge of a quick thruster trip to the bazaar parking lot, then her and Cal walking through the grounds toward a building that offered hire cars. "I'll pay," Mia said. "Since I'm the only one with a license, and I know you're light on credits." "Light is the truth. I'm worried how I'll get enough to buy the first load of produce when we do find a customer." "You should stop paying me. I promised you a fee. We're partners now. I'll share the good and bad with you. And I've still got 15,000 in my terminal from that prison job. That should cover the startup produce." 30 credits for half a day, the attendant at the hire place said. "That was only for that small hover car," Cal said, shaking his head. "So how much is a larger van for the day?" "Delivery van would be 90 for the whole day. 80 per day if you take it for more than 3 days, and 300 a week." "Just the car for the morning," Mia said, holding out her terminal. "Have a nice day." "I won't," Cal mumbled as he was pointed to the car they had been allocated. 1327 Century Ring Road 3. The address still fresh in his memory. Mia entered the destination into the car's screen and activated the manual controls. "Been ages since I drove one of these." Cal was not really concentrating. 80 credits a day rent was taking most of any possible profits. Maybe he could get them down to a better rate over time, but "I always stayed around these closer areas," Mia said as they drove. "Be good to see the city further away from the bazaar. A different world. The further away from the bazaar, the less money. It's where those trying to make a life start. A lot of young families and part-time workers. Everyone is always looking for work." He shook his head as to shake free the memories. "Trying to get even a day's work to pay part of the rent. I can't say I look back at that time and place with fond memories." "Made you dream to escape. Dream of never going back there. And now here I am, going back. But with a dream and a plan. A dream that's faltering a little, and a plan so vague as to seem meaningless. Sort of feels like failure. But others believe in you. I believe in you. The girls believe in you. You won't fail. I can't fail until I stop trying, and I haven't stopped trying yet." Ring Route 1, Mia read aloud the large green sign. Now the building seemed less grand and definitely less colorful. Grand Bazaar was always a drab planet. Fine if you like brown. The houses were now nearly all apartments. More impressive looking than where he'd lived before, and the people walking on the side of the road here were dressed well. As they drove, Cal noted diners and a few small businesses, mainly clothes and uniform shops, and he did spot one produce business. "Ring Route 2, Mia said when they had been quiet a while, and Cal was thinking that taking produce by van this way was not going to leave much time to do the actual delivery and selling. Around him, the scene had turned to one he well remembered. The only difference between apartment blocks was the large number written on the front. Diners were much more common, but the only other business he saw was an employment agency, and a shop offering training for licenses of various types. Until now, he hadn't noticed, but it was obvious once seen. The other traffic on the road. There wasn't any. When they set off from the bazaar, the road had been busy. With Mia driving, he hadn't paid attention, but now the roads were nearly deserted. Still people on the side, but they seemed less well-dressed than before, and there were many more children. Children every way you looked, with large groups playing on the side streets. "Another 5 minutes, Mia said, startling him from his memories. "This like where you lived?" "Very much like this. Hard to tell one building from the other." "What do all these people do?" "Anything they can find. All the little jobs around. Cleaning, moving things, repairing, some paperwork things. Anything those with money will pay for." "You did that?" "And more. Nothing really regular though. Often through an agency. A day or two moving things from one building to another. Bit of cleaning, but I wasn't much good at that. Never got to help in a diner though. That would have been good to know what was what now. I was lucky, I suppose. Straight to pilot school and then to work. Concentrating hard out the window and trying to recognize places he knew, but it was a brown haze. 30 seconds to destination, the navigator said, but still nothing. Plenty of places to park at least, Mia said. You want me to park up here? We'll walk from there. See if I can remember anything. It was only earlier this year. Mia parked the hire car right in front of the building that had been his, and he led her inside the entrance, then up the stairs to his level. Like on autopilot, he knew the way to what had been his apartment. Number 318. The paint of the number chipped so in the right light, the 8 could be mistaken for 9. Pausing before the door, then turning and walking away. It wasn't his place now, and never would be again. I'll show you the diner, he said distantly. Descending toward the main door, he took more notice of the surroundings and the noise. Children playing and crying. Parents cursing and laughing. Heavy footsteps and things falling or being thrown. Outside, he noticed Mia carefully inspecting the car, but he kept on walking toward the diner he had considered as his. Diner 1333, the sign over its door said. He couldn't remember even noticing a sign before. Through the door and it was as though he had never left. The same old tables and the well-worn benches. The floor, only partly cleaned. 4 patrons eating in one corner, but it was not a busy time right now. Another hour or two, and the place would be packed. To the left of the entrance was the order counter, terminal screen and menu list, but not many bothered with that. Haven't seen you here in a while, the woman behind the counter said. What you been up to? Got a loan to buy a freighter. This is my pilot. Cal pointed vaguely toward Mia. I guessed you had gone to work in the mines on Abraxas 3. They were wanting workers there, and you being single. No. Moving produce and wanting to set up a wholesale business here. You need to talk to Bert. Bert, come and see who's come back to visit. He thought you went to the military. Joined the Imperial Corps, he said, but I knew you would never do something silly like that. Couldn't see you blasting people, I could. Now produce. That I can see. But ships. What you want? Bert poked a head through the doorway from the kitchen. It's Cal. You remember? You said he went to the military, but he really went off into space and now wants to sell us produce. We already got produce. I remember you now. Squick cutlets and mash. That's me, Cal said. Now I'm looking to supply produce to the businesses around here. Fresh fruit and vegetables from around the galaxy. Bert had a hand up. Don't use nothing fancy like that here. People can't afford it either. Just the bases like everyone else. You doing that too? We can. What do you usually use? Have a look in the store here. Don't mind you seeing that, but hard game to get into, you know. What if I can supply you these bases at a good price and with regular delivery? They were in the small storeroom, the shelves full of boxes of food bases and some of the bottles of taste essences too. But can you keep doing it regular like? Can't just switch my supply, even if you are an ex-customer. Get a bad name in the business and then, who knows, Bert said. Can give you a price list, but maybe you can send me yours and we'll see if we can ease into it like. Maybe get to help you establish like. Ethel. Find a price list we can send Cal here. It was back to the main counter while Ethel looked through her terminal. Good to see you, Bert said and disappeared out the back, while Ethel found what she wanted and sent the document to Cal's terminal. It's been good to see you again, Cal said. I expect we'll be coming here a lot more now. Don't expect too much, Ethel whispered. People set in their ways, you know. Cal nodded, and him and Mia made their exit as 2 customers were coming inside. Back to the ship, Cal said. They were driving away before he spoke. That was not what I remembered or expected, but it did clarify 2 things for me. The dream hasn't faltered, it has strengthened, and the plan is no longer vague, it is concrete and certain. It might not be my first plan. In fact, it isn't either my second or third plan, but it is a plan that I will make work. You're not going to sell bases, are you? Hardly any. Our business will concentrate on food that looks like food and doesn't need a machine to make it. It will be difficult. Incredibly hard, but Orbis has given us a start, a huge start, and with that help we will make it happen. When we get back, I'll tell everyone my vision and we'll discuss how we all make it real. Mr. Slee should be here, Mia said. And the professor, Cal said. I'll message him and see when he next has free time, and we'll get Mr. Slee to come with us now to see the new ship. Hire car returned and Mr. Slee encouraged to go with them, and all through that, Cal's mind was racing with ideas. The whole of a vast plan was maturing. A plan to own more than just produce on this planet. And the best bit, he could clearly see himself accomplishing that task. Flying me getting better, Mr. Slee said as they glided low over the ground toward their new base, and when they landed, there were a group of people waiting for them. Some to help show Mr. Slee through the liner, and then we need to find the best place for a discussion, Cal said loudly. Maybe that dining room. The twins took up the position of tour guides and Mr. Slee was helped around the site, being pointed to all the things the girls thought important. We got that runabout out and gave it a spin, Orbis said to Cal. I thought you'll be wanting some space to store things. I'd been considering moving an old wrecked hull or two to form a store to leave these empty pods in. You'll need a couple of large slings. I'm sure I stuffed some of them in here somewhere. Orbis waved his hand around the site. Things happened so quick. Gradually people gravitated to the liner's dining room and Cal was ready. He had rehearsed a short speech, but once he started those prepared lines seemed to disappear. Thank you all for having enough faith in me to join with us to set out on a brand new business venture. When I began this idea, it was more with wishing and a picture of living a good life for myself and those around me. In truth, I had no real idea of how I'd make that happen, but, over a very short time, people and events happened at a fast rate and ideas seemed to fall into my lap. The idea that appealed more than any other was to set up a business providing produce to places where there was none grown locally. Initially my thought was to supply wholesale to those smaller traders throughout the area. Then I talked to a man who had much experience in the business and he told me of what he had seen. Only two sorts of business lasted long. A small family business and a huge one, almost like a carnival. We think that's the best one, Kira said. I thought the same, but there are things about that idea that make it difficult to position and set up. To make it a success it needs a firm base behind it. A business that provides credits every day to get the money to pay to set up the huge business, and support it if it doesn't immediately work well. There's a lot of truth in that, Orbis said nodding. This morning I took a visit back to where I was living before, with the intention of finding a way to supply produce to all the hundreds of diners that exist around the outside of the bazaar. Hard business to break into, Orbis nodded. We found that. First surprise was they only had food bases, and the cheapest ones at that. I did get a price list from their supplier, and even though the diners are paying top price for cheap goods, they don't want to risk changing. We'll be part of a deal with the landlord, Orbis said. The owners of the diners are really just staff, paying rent and buying supplies they are forced to buy. Seen it before. That's what I thought, Cal said. The owner I spoke to did offer to try a little bit of our produce, but he was not very enthusiastic, and really he only wanted bases, where I want to focus on real fruit and vegetables. The people there look poor, Mia said. All their money goes on rent and food, Cal said. And the landlord controls both, Orbis added. I've not given up, Cal said. There are hundreds of thousands of people outside the center. Now imagine if 100,000 of them was able to spare one credit on real food, that is 100,000 credits per week we could get. Maybe half will go in supplies. A big part on wages and transport, but still there will be a flow of credits that will power an even bigger business, Those in power won't like someone taking even one credit from out their hands, Orbis said. I'm sure that's true, but we'll need to do business in a way they can't stop. My plan is simple, but takes a lot. The main idea is to only sell packs of produce. Packs that sell for 1, 2 and 5 credits. We buy what fresh produce is best right now, then here we all get together and make up mixed packs up to the value we plan. This way we don't have to bother with people having to select one of this and 2 of that, we do it for them. We make packs of fruit, packs of vegetables, packs of berries. Some with everything a family would want. When we have the packs, we load them into a van, and then load that van into a ship that flies to near the area we choose. Then the driver takes the van through the areas, stopping on street corners where we have signs saying what we have. Any trouble they move. That is a good idea in many ways, Mia said carefully. I see the logic, Orbis said. And mainly plastic payment too. Orange vans, Kyra said. Orange like our pods. With hollow signs like those expensive displays we saw, Kira said excitedly. I picture those signs too, Cal said, but we will have to begin with plain hire vans, unless we can find a cheap used one. What's your idea for after that part begins to work? Orbis asked. Turn this area around here into a year-long carnival with a large produce shop at its heart. We might have to buy more land around here, but we turn it into an attraction as big as the bazaar itself. Then, when that works, we expand into other planets. We called at one that was mainly imperial workers that was perfect. Huge population, so we begin with delivering to the poorer workers. Get those people on our side and then maybe open a huge shop for the rich. You will end up with a large staff supplying a huge population that likes you and trusts you, Orbis said, stroking the side of his face. Hard for any imperial group to hurt you. Too big to touch, Cal said. An army of loyal staff and ships with vehicles scattered all over the regions. All done in the open using the brightest colors we can find. They'll try hard to stop you growing, Orbis said. We'll need to be aware of what could happen and make preparations. First thing I worry is, will the rulers allow us to sell on the road? Finding I doing, Mr. Slee said. Waiting please. His fingers were all over his terminal and then a woman appeared on the small screen and the pair began talking in a foreign language. The call ended quite soon and Mr. Slee looked up. Permit needing, he said, nodding his head. Impossible not. Someone you know? Mia asked gently. Daughter, Mr. Slee said. Would she like to live here with you? Cal asked. I talking. Maybe. Husband and youngest son too. Just what we need, Orbis said. Now we need to work out about these vans. They need to look like they own the town. When they drive past, people need to say that business is profitable and stable, and your staff need to want to be proud to drive them around. Leave it to me. We'll get the best we can. Portable terminals, Mr. Slee said out of the blue. Business with van needing. What about here? Mia asked. Adding to ship terminal I doing. We can help with changes, Kira said. We can change terminals in many ways, Kyra added. Mia was shaking her head while Cal was picturing tentacle monster images flowing over the screen background while people tried to read the price lists. Then it was a general discussion, everyone wanting to talk together, some planning their favorite part of the idea, and Cal was cornered with Orbis. I can't use the screens for a while, so you'll need to do it yourself. How about I give you a box of those L84 rods that President Man liked, and you go and see what deal he'll do on vans. I'm not sure he had vans. I'm sure he'll find them for L84s. Good vans too. The best. Make this idea work. I want to see you in that Imperial planet this year. I want to see them worried about your growth, and I want to see you laughing in their face as you take over their planets. I'm not sure we'll get that far. Oh, aren't you? Orbis laughed. 2 more weeks and you'll be starting to take over this place. Guaranteed. Discussion subsiding, Cal messaged the president of Specialist Produce Handlers asking for a time to personally discuss an order, saying he needed about 3 hours travel time. Then Cal went with Orbis to find the box of L84 power rods ready for a deal. Work on at least 6 fans, Orbis said as they searched. I'm guessing that would be a good deal. Leave him enough profit to think he's cheated you, and yet think you would be happy to come back for more. I'll have to make sure they can fit in my ship first, Cal said. Or we'll buy another one. Look at these. I just piled everything valuable on your ship. Those loan sharks got nothing. Doesn't seem too fair. I'm not a real crook, you know. That lease they had on their books is worth more than the loan, and that crowd that wanted to buy me out cheap will buy it now for full price. No one will really lose. Those loan sharks will get their money and more, and that mining company will end up paying the right price for the mine, and you get a new business and I get a new life. We all win in the end, and you got to admit we had a lot of fun making it happen. Just remembering you trying to get those goons pay for the freight on 2 boxes of dirt will give me pleasure for years. Dirt? Cal said. Plain dirt from the back of the shed. Their greed will send them mad testing it to see what special metal was in it. No one would send dirt on express rates, would they? Orbis burst out laughing. You got to laugh. I was worried they'd want to look in that chest. No. Calling it kid stuff and having no other kid stuff around sent them off the scent. What they didn't know was we were all poor people. We didn't have all the stuff their family would have. We're going to get things for the family later today, the twins were getting a list. Save your cash for stock. People first. Without people, we have no future. Those Imperial lot should take notice of that lad. The Sea Stallion Book 2. The Base at Grand Bazaar. A Space Adventure. By Mystic Alchemist. Copyright 2024 Mystic Alchemist. All rights reserved. Written in Australian English. This book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places and incidents are either a product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual people living or dead, events or locales is purely coincidental. Cover and text written and assembled by hand without use of artificial intelligence.